The original Moana is a tour de force, a perfect film, 10 out of 10, one of the best that Disney has ever made. With very little backing in terms of marketing, it went from being a modest box office success to being the biggest streaming movie in the world year after year. Moana 2, on the other hand, is none of those. But how bad is it? And should you see it this Thanksgiving? We'll explain right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we bring you the honest reviews you need so that you can choose what you will go see. Today, we're happy to do so with Moana 2, although I'm not happy to report how bad this is. For Disney, the question is, what would happen if we took our most important princess franchise, and in this film they're explicit, she's not a princess. That's a genius move. But what would happen if we took our most valuable princess animated brand, Moana, and we combined it with the writing and the soundtrack quality of Wish, Strange World, and Lightyear? And that is the experiment Disney has dropped down upon all of us. We'll get you the review, folks. You won't believe how bad it is, but also I'm going to explain why it's bad. And that's something other channels simply are not doing yet. When you sit down to watch Moana 2, you may ask yourself why it feels like you're watching the opening episode to a very long series, and why then all of a sudden you feel like you're watching the finale to a very long series. And the answer to that is because you are. Moana 2 was originally a Disney Plus TV series. So when you say to yourself, hey, these characters at the end of the movie are saying things and referencing things that never happened, well, that's because they were in the middle filler episodes. When you watch some of these characters and you wonder exactly why they're there, it's because they were part of the side quest filler episodes that were cut. And the only way they stay is if they have some part in the beginning or finale that could not be cut away later. Let's talk about the pacing, because the pacing here is atrocious. Folks, it takes 35 minutes of spoken exposition to get Moana started on her journey in this movie. That is 35 minutes of telling us why she's going to do what she's going to do. And the mission here, the massive adventure we're supposed to be undertaking, is paper thin, except I can't say that because paper is deeper than this. A single sheet is thicker, has more depth than Moana 2. What is the mission that Moana must go on? Well, she needs to go find people to connect people, because if she doesn't find people, then bad things will happen. Why? Don't worry about it. That was in the filler episodes they cut. And Bob Iger, who said that he saw this Disney Plus TV show and decided that it was so grandiose that it just had to be a movie. No, folks, it definitely wasn't because they had a hole in the calendar and needed to fill it. Bob Iger is a hack, and no one should ever listen to him. And for the folks out there who are listening to Bob Iger declare that Epic Universe and Universal Studios are no threat to Disney World, go watch Moana 2 and see what he said about that, and see if you still feel well about Bob Iger. Now, I want to share with you just a few things, again, about the pacing, how bad it is. Again, 35 minutes is how long it will take you to get out of exposition and into a story that has nothing to it. In fact, do you know how empty this movie is? Try, hey, Lightyear did this thing where our hero was also the villain. That was interesting. What if we did there's no villain at all? Because that's Moana 2. You say, Pro, don't spoil the movie. Well, you can't really spoil it because there really isn't a story. You see, Moana goes on a journey to try to defeat some new bad guy, except there's no bad guy. She faces down some lightning in the end of the movie, but there's no bad guy, there's no villain. The villain never speaks, you never see the villain. The villain has no motivations whatsoever. We never understand why the villain is doing what the villain is doing. And again, the villain never appears. So there is no villain. Try that one out. Apparently that was too much for the budget, eh? Now, you might say, well, at least Maui and Moana are going to be a lot of fun together, right? Right? That's what made the first one work so well. Well, turns out that Maui was supposed to what was supposed to appear in one of those final episodes in a huge, epic kind of, wow, they got The Rock to come to do this Disney Plus show. And that means that it takes more than an hour in this movie, which, by the way, lasts an hour and a half, for Maui and Moana to get together, to do a thing that nobody understands, but at least by the last 30 minutes, we're all happy that they're doing something, because for the first 60 minutes, nothing was happening ever. Now that is a lot of fun. And if you're expecting a wonderful soundtrack, think again. The only song worth listening to is a song that was in the first movie that happens at the very end. All of the other songs sound like knockoffs, rip-offs, like cheap facades of what you saw in the original Moana. Now, let's talk about the side quest characters as well, because they could not be cut from the film, because they appear in the end of the film, because they appeared in the end of the Disney Plus show. And yet they serve absolutely no purpose whatsoever. Just like they decided to rip the villain idea somewhat from Lightyear, they also decided to get the side quest characters, the motley crew of absolute morons, to join Moana. And they are incredibly stupid. And they are single-note characters with absolutely no personality whatsoever in their soul, which they don't have that either. Let me introduce them to you. They are Grumpy Gardner. He never grows a darn thing in the entire movie, but he does learn how to swim at one point, which takes all of 15 seconds to complete his character arc. You also have Superfan. He superfans the entire film. And don't forget about Polynesian engineer girl, the STEM character, or as we like to call her a little bit better on the channel, Fix-It Felicia. She makes the boat go faster. And that is the job of each of these three, except they're also complete morons. And in fact, every time they're on the screen, they are nauseatingly annoying to every single person. When I found out that they were going on the boat with Moana, I took a very long sigh, because I knew that I was stuck with these imbeciles for the rest of the film. And stuck, you are indeed. Luckily, the end of the film also features a little coconut warrior. And because of that, we have to spend a long time in the middle of the film figuring out where the coconut warrior came from. Because, well, that was a middle episode, and how else are we going to get with the coconut guy? You can't cut him out because he's already in the end, because this was a show once upon a time. So we get a nearly full episode of how the coconut warrior got on Moana's boat. And because he doesn't speak and because he actually does stuff, the coconut warrior's pretty darn all right with me. But don't forget, there's also a fake villain in the middle of the film. That's because Maui has been captured by her. She is Batwoman, and no, not that Batwoman. And she's in the middle of the film, although she never comes back again. She has no point to the plot whatsoever. I assume that when there was an 8-hour-long TV show that she had a place and she had a reason, but because she captured Maui in the TV show, she has to be in the movie to rescue Maui from her, but there's no time and no budget to have any kind of reason for her to be there or to explain what happened to her after she disappears. And that's not the worst of it. This strange Batwoman who has no reason for being in the movie, she also gets a musical number, which makes no sense, but has the emotional gravitas of an entire episode that we'll never see, where Moana learned things from her. The other bizarre part of this is that because these were originally full-blown episodes, there's a place in the movie where Moana is tearful and tells Maui that everything she does, she just ruins. Except she's never done that in the movie. So no one understands why she's saying that. It's because that was cut out of the 80% of the show that was cut out so they could turn this into a movie. Do you see a pattern here? Well, it turns out that once upon a time, Bob Iger decided that he needed a movie for November. And so he decided that they would take a TV show and transform it into a movie that would release in November. And the problem with that is that the first 30 minutes of this movie is the setup. Then we get, in very small snippets, except for the coconut part, because that couldn't be explained in a shorter amount of time, we get very quick snippets of what were the, I suppose, the 6 in-between episodes. And then we get the final episode at the very end. And that makes for an incredibly jarring movie. Now, in terms of the influence and the what this will do to the Moana franchise, well, it will dampen enthusiasm dramatically. And Wicked, if there is any justice in this world, will defeat Moana 2 soundly. I don't know that will happen. A lot of people are going to go see Moana 2 out of excitement because it's the movie to go see with your family this Thanksgiving week and because they love the original. Clearly, everybody does. But what Bob Iger has done here has decided that he can serve you up the same meal, but this time with absolutely no care whatsoever in the world. And he believes that because what you had before was so good, that you'll just accept this. And that is a terrible way to treat your franchises, your brands, your properties. But modern Disney does that. Sequelitis has struck again and destroyed Moana. I don't know how much people will care anymore about this character after this movie. I assume people will still continue to watch the original on Disney Plus and just say, that's the bad one, when they see this featured anywhere near it. In fact, I went to this movie with various people of different ages to find out what they would think. And one 7-year-old girl who's a big fan of the original Moana, when I asked her what she thought of the movie after it was over, she said it was so-so. That is a no-go-go for Disney in terms of moving holiday merchandise and of getting people excited for the live-action Moana coming up. But for Bob Iger, everything is whatever gets him to the finish line as CEO, including sacrificing properties like Moana. Now, it's time to give this a final score. And before I do, I want to say that not all is terrible. Most things are terrible, but not all is terrible. The animators who worked on this, wow, that film studio that was just opened, that they forced them to do this in 6 months, those people are incredibly talented. There's only one scene where I realized that there were heavy usage of keyframes without in-between animations. It's where Maui is transformed into a shark and is talking to Moana. If you want to really pay close attention, and if you have any kind of background in 3D animation, you'll notice when that happens. It's a little bit jarring if you know what's going on. Outside of that, they accomplished something that is miraculous in how difficult it must have been to produce a full-blown Disney animated movie with the water effects and with all of the difficulty that comes with the Moana movie in just 6 months. It's incredible. Also, auli'i Cravalho and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, despite how little he's in the movie, they give it their all. They give it their best. They are trying to save this thing. They can't. It's futile, but they're trying to save it. And I would also say that the film is not offensive, and it will not cause your kiddo to contemplate divisive things or ask you questions that make you squirm in the car afterwards. There is none of that. Probably because there's no story either. I mean, there really isn't. Moana needs to go find an island because if she doesn't, then something will happen that's bad. We never explained what that is or why that is or anything. We don't know any of it. But she's got to go, and she apparently made some mistakes we never saw, and she's sad about that. So, what do we give this? Well, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. And the reason I'll give it a 4 out of 10 is because I think it's watchable for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. It's something. It's not as atrociously bad as Strange World or Lightyear, but that's only because the animators are giving it everything they've got. It's not as bad as Wish, although the soundtrack is, because auli'i Cravalho and Dwayne Johnson are doing everything they can to pull this thing. Would I recommend this movie? No. Would I say that you could snooze through this while a kid watches it if they're determined to go see it over Thanksgiving break? Yep, take one for the team. It is a sad, sad thing to watch. A movie that I think is up there with Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, Moana, to be treated this way for Moana 2. Clearly, Disney knew they had a problem. They held the film review embargo until 2 hours before the movie released. That means they know this is a bad movie. And it is. It is a bad, bad movie. But it's a 4 out of 10 because a very few people cared enough to try to save something that is not worth saving. And they did a job that warrants some boost to the score. So, auli'i, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, animators, that's for you. Without you, this is down around the 2 mark. That's how bad it is. Because again, there is no villain, there is no story. Moana does not learn a single thing whatsoever, and we never know why she was on the journey to begin with. Yuck. What a way to go for a film that was marvelous, the original. Hopefully they can get this turned around. We'll see. Folks, that's the review, the honest review of Moana. Like, share, subscribe, click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts about this travesty. And folks, also, please consider joining us for the Pro Show Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's a special edition. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving with you, and then we're doing a Christmas special after that. Cannot wait. Folks, until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Okay, these colors just seem to conflict with your natural tone.
Wilton, what are you doing?
Obviously, we're getting Jose ready to throw his name in the hat to be the next CEO of Disney.
That's ridiculous. He's not qualified for that kind of role.
Well, of course he is. He's a wonderful candidate for a corporate puppet.
What on earth is happening?
He's literally a foreign agent by all accounts. You think honoring boundaries is a thing? No! This is Disney! He's got diversity points, green skin, and a wig. And most importantly, he likes to destroy things and blow them up, whether they're from the past or from now. He shows no discrimination.
Okay, you know what? I really can't argue with any of that. So,
right?
You two have fun. I'm gonna go read thatparkplace.com and watch WDW.
Okay,
Pro.
bye. Okay, Jose, say magical experiences.
I already hate this.